So, man, talk to me about your family history at Jefferson High School, man.
Yeah, my family history goes way back into the mid-'60s as far as Jefferson High School. I had a lot of family went there. My mother went there. All my aunts and uncles on my maternal side of the family attended there. My older brother, who's a year and a half older than me, attended. So it is a lot of history. It goes back, way back up until today. I mean, I'm coaching there today. My son graduated from there in 2015. My nephew's on my team right now currently. So it's a real rich tradition of my family attending Jefferson High School. Because it was a neighborhood. I mean, we lived in a neighborhood, we was a part of the neighborhood, and back then, everybody from the neighborhood went to the same high school, which is a little different now, but you know, that's how rich the tradition is of my family attending Jefferson High School.
So, you named a lot of people in your family besides yourself. Why did you didn't attend Jefferson High School?
Well, I didn't attend Jefferson High School because I had a bunch of friends like you that, well, not you exactly because you went to Jefferson, but a bunch of my buddies, you know, we played basketball together in middle school. We wanted to go play together, and you know, we decided that Wilson would be the best option for us to go get exposure and show our talents. I mean, Jefferson was always an option because I still lived in the neighborhood. Like I said, I had a brother that was a year and a half older than me, and he went there, and I kind of wanted to make my own tracks and you know, make my own path, which is why I went to Wilson High School, not Jefferson.
So, the rivalries. So back then, you know, with your family, you know, you had an opportunity. Well, did you have an opportunity to play against your older brother?
No, I didn't. I didn't have an opportunity to play against him on the basketball court. Summer league I did, but during the season I didn't. He didn't play basketball after his first year, but I did have an opportunity to compete with him in football. He was an awesome football player, and you know, we were a year apart, and you know, I remember the game. I was a freshman, he was a sophomore. It was a JV game at Wilson High School. We ended up beating his team like 40-something to zip, but he had some All-American plays. But no, I did get to compete against him in middle school, on the middle school levels, but in high school levels we really didn't. He stopped playing basketball. I kept, you know, the dream alive for myself, and so therefore it wasn't too much of a competition in basketball. It was off the court though. I mean, he was a great athlete. And he used to kick my tail until I was a freshman in high school. So, no, so there was that competition, that brotherly competition right there.
So, since you attended Wilson, you still was a community guy. I know that you worked for the state. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I did go to Wilson, but I still remained living in this community right here. You know, I did a lot of things in the community. I lived in the community, I hung out in the community. I just went to school for a few hours up on the hill. But currently, I do work for the state of Oregon. I still live in the community. I've been actually working for the state of Oregon for 25 years. And I also get paid for coaching basketball at Jefferson High School, and I've been there for 18 years.
Okay, so that's the reason I bring this up is because one is, even though you went to Wilson, you still was a pillar in the community. So what brought you to Jefferson High School to come and coach? You know, instead of like, you know, you going to Wilson, coaching there, you know, basically because you had your other brothers that went to Wilson High School, and you stayed in the community and came to Jeff. So why'd you come to Jeff and want to coach?
Well, because I'm a community guy. Like I said, I spent all my life in the community. But I went to school for a few hours a day out at Wilson High School. And really, the Jefferson job came available in 1999. I applied for the head job, and I was the head candidate until a candidate that had more experience, and that was another pillar in the community who was a mentor to me, until he threw his name in the hat, and he ended up getting the job, and I decided to help him out. You know, I never wanted to go coach out at Wilson because I didn't live out there. You know, I mean, I had a great time going to high school out there, but my heart and everything is right here in northeast Portland.
So, being a pillar in the community, also, you know, I would consider yourself as a mentor. You know, even though you went out on the hill to go to school, you kept everything organic and authentic by still being who you are, born and raised in northeast Portland. So,
I had a little girlfriend live right over there.
Oh, you're okay. We're not.
Right there. Trying to get in the movie, man?
Stranger Things right here. So, what has basketball meant to Jefferson High School?
Basketball at Jefferson High School is huge. It's a part of the community. It's ingrained in the community. Jefferson basketball is. We have a great following, a lot of support from a lot of folks in the community, and at one time, they always every year they talk about Jefferson maybe closing up and passing these ballots and measures to close Jefferson down, and a lot of people say that basketball is what's keeping Jeff alive, and I kind of feel that, and a lot of kids, a lot of student athletes come to Jeff for basketball because they have dreams and aspirations on getting their college paid for and furthering their basketball talents, and they choose Jefferson. And basketball is so huge. It's like if Jefferson didn't have basketball, it probably wouldn't be Jefferson. And you hear that across the community a lot. So I've had a great pleasure of being a part of the program since '99, and just kind of keeping it competitive because we know it means a lot to the community.
So you mentioned kids want to go there and players. Name some of the players out of there that stood out at Jefferson High School.
Well, Jefferson is probably one of the most rich tradition schools as far as basketball in the state of Oregon. Yourself, you graduated in '89. I consider you one of the better players to come out of there. Even more players back in our time, Corinne Wilson, Charles McKinney, just a few. Even before that, you had Terrell Brandon, ex-NBA All-Star, went to Grant High School. You had Keith Smith, went to Wilson, graduated in '85. So it goes back, and even some of the players since I've been coaching in '99, you have Brandon Brooks, went to USC, Jefferson. You have Thomas Miles, you have Thomas Gardner, Aaron Miles, Mike Lee, just a lot of those guys. Even more recent players, Terrence Jones, Terrence Ross, Silas Melson, my sons Kadeem Strickland and Isaiah Robinson. Even you got Victor Sanders. Even today, you got Kamaka Hepa, who's currently playing, who's going to Texas. You have Marcus Ahonis, who was Player of the Year as a sophomore this year. So it's a really rich tradition. And I feel bad because I know I left a lot of guys out, but it's just so many guys have come through Jefferson, have really helped Jefferson, not only Jefferson, but the community. These guys are all community guys. I know some of the guys that's been fortunate enough to make some money off the game of basketball have been able and willing to give back not only to Jefferson but to the community. So it's a really rich tradition of basketball tradition at Jefferson High School. So
with all these kids, it seems like you're saying rich tradition. I know that Jefferson is also the school of champions. It's crazy that they haven't even painted the outside where it says school of champions, and so they kind of consider Jefferson like the Pac-12, a Pac-12 school, like I hate to say it, but like a UCLA, because they won so many championships. Who has the most championships? That's one question. And the follow-up with that is, how many Division I athletes went to school at a Jefferson High School for basketball?
To answer that, your last question first, since I've been at Jefferson since '99, there's been 29 Division I basketball players that come out of Jefferson. There's been also a bunch of basketball players that have gone to other levels, Division II, junior college, Division III, or whatnot. So, but as far as Division I, there's been 29 since 1999, which is an average of about two point something a year, which is unheard of in the state of Oregon, maybe even in the Northwest, to send that many guys to.
So, talking about the rich tradition that you guys have at Jefferson High School, how many Division I basketball players, or just kids that went on to play college basketball from Jefferson High School since you've been there?
Since '99, since the time I got to Jefferson High School, there's been about 40 plus kids that have gone on to play basketball at a college level. 29 of those have been Division I. There's been a lot of Division II. There's been some NAIA. There's been some JUCO. We have current players on our roster that are receiving Division I interest. I would say at least half of today's roster would end up playing college basketball at some level.
Man, that's a lot of kids. So since you've been there, you guys reclassified to 6A. But overall, people consider Jefferson High School. We call it's a school of champions. That's one of our mottos, school of champions. How many championships have you been a part of at Jefferson High School?
I've been a part of 7 state championships at Jefferson High School. I was the assistant coach in our first 2, which was in 2000, which that team is considered the best basketball team to ever come out of the state of Oregon. Had 8 Division I basketball players on that team. I also was a part of the 2008, which was the last one of Marshall Haskins, who was the coach before me. And then when I became the head coach in 2009 and currently, we won 5 state championships, hopefully to make it 6 this year.
Man, so that's 5 and 9 years. So let me ask you this. So 5 and 9 years, there's really only one other coach that I can remember, but it wasn't in basketball though. But this guy's been a staple in the community, and he lives in the neighborhood, track coach, and he has I don't know how many championships he has, but it seems like you're on track to win infinite numbers of championships. Because how many PI titles you have?
So 5 state championships and 8 city championships, PIO championships.
Wow.
And I know the other coach you're talking about, Leon McKenzie, I believe the track coach. I don't know how many he has either, but I know he's pretty legendary around here as far as his credentials as far as track. But what I can say about as far as basketball state championships, I'm not sure if Dick Gray, who you are familiar with, ex-coach at Benson High School, he either has 4 or 5 state championships. I haven't done no history or no research on this, but I believe he has either 4 or 5, and I know that there's 2 other coaches that have 6 state championships. One of them is Gene Potter, the current Jesuit coach, and there's another guy from back in the day. But the most as far as basketball is 6.
Okay, 6. So you right on track.
I am on track, and I can only be in this position because of the players that come to Jefferson High School and the players that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of their basketball life.
A lot of these kids these days, man, they talk about the culture, Talk to us about the Northeast basketball culture. Kind of give us the tradition. You mentioned rich tradition. Talk about the neighborhood tradition as far as like being in the park. Right here, we're at Alberta Park. Talk about the Northeast basketball culture here.
Well, the culture definitely has kind of changed over time. It's definitely different today than from when we grew up, even from about 10 years ago. When we were growing up, the culture was, you're going to kind of your neighborhood school, you're going to the parks in the spring and summer playing basketball. There was only 1 or 2 AAU teams, and so everybody in the state used to fight to be on those 2 AAU teams where you go get exposure in the summertime, spring and summertime. And today it's totally different. Kids don't utilize the parks, and we've always thought that playing in the parks was part of our culture as far as getting toughness and knowing how to play the game of basketball. But today, kids don't play in the parks, and some of those reasons are, a lot of the science say you mess your knees up, your ankles will get bad and all this and that, and a lot of it is AAU basketball. Kids today only play basketball when there's a referee and there's a whistle. Other than that, they're doing a lot of training, skill development type things, and that's really the big difference in the culture of basketball. That's why I feel like today's kid, most of them are soft. You went to the parks back in the day, which was part of our culture, to get some toughness. I mean, these days, in the parks, back then you were fighting, you had to call your own fouls, you had to argue your call, and you maybe had to fight, But in today's game, the culture is just totally different. You got a lot of parent involvement. I mean, you like parental involvement, but not to a capacity to where it's gonna impact the kids negatively, and so the culture has really changed, and I've thought over the past couple of years, because of the nature and the culture, the different culture than what I grew up in and used to coaching in, I've thought about even walking away from coaching basketball, just because like I mentioned, parental involvement is just way overboard these days. Everybody is the prima donna. Everybody wants to get that that Division I scholarship, but they don't want to put the work in. So that's pretty much how the culture has tremendously changed from back when we grew up to now.
It's crazy because I recall you and we used to go play one-on-one all the time. We'll play one-on-one over at Woodlawn Park, but then we played here at this park. One of the things I know we used to do is we used to get our team and get our travel team and take our travel team to all the different parks in the city just to prove that we were the best in the city. And also the toughness, but then also you had to shorten your moves up because when you play on the park it could be a little slippery and you didn't really get embarrassed. So talk about like some of those things. You think like are there some kids now that kind of like are throwback in your opinion? Are there some, or can you identify those?
I mean, there's obviously some tough kids that play basketball and play sports in general, but you just learn the game in a different fashion. When you playing in the parks, you're having these one-on-one battles, you're having these team battles, and like you mentioned, we travel with a group of guys to go around the city to prove that we was best in the city. I mean, if we was best in the city, then you're best in the state. It's really not that guy today. I mean, I haven't seen that guy. I mean, these guys, and I think another thing that has ruined the culture of basketball is video games, electronics, and technology. That's been real pivotal in just ruining kind of the culture of not only basketball here in our city, but cities across the country. Basketball has meant a heck of a whole lot to me. I had an older brother, older cousins, and just older guys around the neighborhood that played. And I took a liking at an early age. And I used to watch a lot of basketball on TV back in the Big East days when Georgetown was my favorite team, Syracuse, the Big East. That was when basketball was kind of at an all-time high as far as college basketball, and a lot of African Americans playing basketball. And I just like the lifestyle. I just like, the idea of playing on TV. I like the idea of furthering my education on a free basketball scholarship. And so it helped me work hard. And as I continued to play, as I gotten older, I used basketball as a tool. I know basketball was using me. And I decided to use basketball to get a free education. And I knew that, my parents didn't have any money to send me to school. My parents were involved, but they weren't overly involved like today's parent. I mean, I was kind of one of those kids, growing up. We hung out together. Our parents didn't really, we were responsible, but our parents didn't really, have to keep track of us. There was no cell phones, no technology. We walking from 5 miles from practice to park and just kind of being on our grind, because we knew if we were able to be the best in our city, that we had an opportunity to go to college and play basketball, and that's what we both did. And today we're pretty successful. So basketball meant a heck of a whole lot to me, to be able to get an education, to do the things that I'm doing today. And I just look back on it, if it wasn't for basketball, I probably could have turned the corner a different route and got involved in gangs. I had a big family, had family that was involved in gangs, and I was able to, play basketball, have friends that play basketball, and kind of stay off the streets, as far as doing the negative stuff and, doing the positive things, playing basketball.
So basically, basketball was not only a tool, but also something that brought people together. It seemed like it brought the community together. Because if you play basketball, it seems like a lot, like even back then, the gangs would say, "Hey, man, don't mess with those guys, man. They ballers. They trying to get out of here," So we kind of had that. So you mentioned earlier that the culture changed. So do you think that basketball has changed from a community standpoint, bringing people together, and or do you think that basketball? People are still trying to use basketball as a tool, kind of to get out, and then also bring some kind of community together.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think basketball does bring people together. Brings not only student athletes, it brings families in the community together. They get to play together, and these days they travel a lot together, spend a lot of time together. So
let's talk a little bit more about coaching, man. What made you become a coach, man, a mentor to these kids, man? What do you enjoy about it?
Well, after I graduated from college, after we graduated from college, we got home. We really wasn't doing anything. And, a mentor of ours and another good friend, his father, got us into coaching. We started coaching some guys elite guys that turned out to be elite guys out of the city. Some of those guys I mentioned earlier. But we just kind of, that was our introduction to coaching, really. We kind of had that group, and I kind of liked it, liked being involved. I was still young, so I had a lot going on, traveling and partying and doing a lot of that stuff. But, even with all of that, we still kind of stayed with it. And just over the years, I kind of enjoyed it, especially after I had sons, one born in 99, one born in 2000. No, those dates are messed up, but 22 and 21 years old today. After they were born, then I was pretty much full-fledged, and so I've been involved for about 25 years in basketball, and it brought a lot of joy to my heart and brings a lot of joy to my heart when you get to, watch a kid grow as a person, not only as an athlete. You get to watch him from elementary school, and you get to watch him walk the stage as far as graduating from college. I mean, that brought a lot of joy. So, that has kept me involved. That's why I'm involved today. It don't pay no bills. Matter of fact, it's taken away from bills. So I've really enjoyed it over the years, and I'm currently still enjoying it. Every here and there I get burned out and take a spring and summer off because I do basketball all year round, not only Jefferson High School, but AAU. So every time I feel a burnout, I tend to take a spring and summer off like I did last year. But I'm planning on being full-fledged this summer as far as AAU basketball. But, basketball has brought a lot of joy to my life, a lot of joy to my family. You got to have support from home, from the wife in order to do it and be successful. And so, I really enjoyed it over the years and, happy that I got involved.
Who are some of the mentors or some people that stuck out to you in the basketball community that's either helped you or that they probably don't even know that you look up to?
Yeah, well, as far as basketball, I know that my parents feel like, I did a lot of this out here. I was grinding, but, they've been instrumental in just my entire life, so and including basketball. But growing up with the friends I've had, including yourself, that's kind of helped me stay on a straight and narrow and keep me positive. You and Damon Stoudemire, a couple of other close guys, Gene Williams, my family, my brothers and sisters, today my children, my wife, and a couple of coaching mentors that I've had coming up, Vernon Baker, and Booker T. Wells, who coached us in 7th and 8th grade. I've had high school coaches and Dick Beechel, who was one of my favorites. My college coaches, Rob Chavez and Jimmy Anderson, and all the assistants. And other pillars in the community, Ray Leary, Tony Hobson, of some of the few, Marshall Haskins. Those are just some of the names. I know, once again, I left folks out, but for me, it's been a whole community type environment where I've looked up to a lot of different people, to help me get to this point.
So you mentioned all these basically prominent people in the community, primarily your parents. I mean, I think a lot of people, they mention coaches or mentors first, but you mentioned your family. I know family is very, very important to you. You mentioned that you got to have a really big time support. Talk about your job now, because you're not only you coaching these kids, mentoring these kids, but also talk about what do you do for a living, and how does that impact on you as far as coaching as well?
Yeah, my excuse me, my day-to-day job is I work for the Department of Human Services, Child Welfare, and I've been doing that for the past 25 years. And my role is I investigate child abuse and neglect. So whenever there's cases of abuse or neglect called, I'm one of those workers that goes out, one of the first responders to go out there and make sure that kids are safe and try to preserve the family. In doing this job, it kind of ties over to coaching basketball, because at the same time in my day job, I'm helping kids and families. I'm doing the same thing as far as coaching, because coaching, you're a little bit of everything. You're a mentor, you're a coach, you're a parent, you're a trainer, you're a doctor, you're a little bit of everything as a coach. So my job and my coaching job, they kind of go hand in hand, because at the end of the day, the objective is to help kids and families.
So it seems like you're pretty stable at everything you do. I mean, you've been with the state, I think you said, for 25 years, correct?
Yeah.
And you've been coaching for
About 25 years.
25 years,
Yeah.
but then at the high school level. What kind of advice would you give to a younger person that wants to follow in your footsteps?
I would say, school first. You have to go to school and get an education so you can make your life better if you want to make other folks' lives better. And I would say you have to have a lot of energy. You have to have thick skin. And you have to be a humble person. Those are some of the advice that I would give anybody that want to step into the realm of coaching or even step into the realms of working for child welfare. And those things have helped me throughout the years, having thick skin on my job as well as coaching. I mean, on the job, I'm in court, I can get blasted by an attorney and I got to let that slide, attorney or a judge, I got to let that slide off. And basketball, when a kid is not having success, the finger is pointed at you. You're the reason why my son, Junebug, is not having success. But that comes with the territory. So that's what I mean when you got to have thick skin. You got to be humble and, definitely got to have some of those traits to be able to have longevity in the game. And, everything we've been talking about, it leads back to Alberta. Alberta is, for the most part, the artery in the city. I mean, Alberta is that artery that runs, miles long, and it crosses Jefferson High School. So that is connection of Jefferson High School to Alberta. Alberta is just a spot where, you and I, a bunch of our buddies, people that we know, just kind of used to come to jam sessions here, hang out in the park, played basketball. I know even over the years, you've acquired tennis and played tennis on that court right there. Exactly. And now they're playing something from Russia, They tapped our election, so now they're tapping our part. I'm just playing. No, so Alberta is the main artery. I mean, there's been, food restaurants on Alberta that we went to, and that I currently go to. Latak is one of them. It's just, park. I used to have a girlfriend live right across the street over here. We went to high school together. So, just being up here today brings back a lot of memories. I remember playing for Woodlawn Park in softball, and we're coming to play Alberta Park in softball. I remember coming to Alberta Park, getting park lunches. So it's a lot of great things that have transpired in Alberta Park. I bring some of my clients here, to have visits here, families to have visits with their children here. So, it's not we were saying earlier how the culture has changed as far as basketball. I mean, the culture has changed around Alberta Park as well. I just mentioned
Alberta neighborhood. Basically.
Yeah, Alberta neighborhood as well. The gentrification that has transpired over the past 5 to 6 to 8 years. A lot of people of color used to come to the park and live about Alberta Street, and now because of the gentrification, things are a lot different. You got a lot of other folks moving in, which we welcome. I mean, the neighborhood is, back then, Alberta Street was a little rough around the edges, a little gang violence here and there, and, today, Alberta Street is it's a lot more diversity, much safer than when we grew up. So those are some of the things that the main artery, Alberta Street, that's how, finish for me.
So on Alberta Street, we talk, they have a rich culture, primarily like the arts district. There still are a few, I believe a few businesses that are still black owned in the neighborhood. I know you have Terrell Brandon's Barbershop. You have Fuel Cafe, which is owned by an African American. What do you see? Do you think it's with all this new development? You think it's good for the community, or do you see it where, hey, it's growing? I support it because our city is growing at a rapid pace. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the country.
Yeah, and I think it's good and bad. I mean, from my perspective. I mean, I think it's bad in the sense that, it's not a neighborhood. It's just a community. I mean, a lot of folks don't know each other. A lot of new folks have moved into the area. I think it's broken up some families. I know a lot of families that I'm aware of have sold some properties right around in this neighborhood. I know now the good is that I'll speak personally first. My family owns some properties around here, and the property value has shot up. So that's some of the good, and some of the good, like you just mentioned, is our city is growing at a rapid rate. I mean, we got new folks moving here. We got a lot of new things going on. The neighborhood is prospering with new businesses. Also, like you mentioned, there's still a few black-owned businesses, but for the most part, I feel like the neighborhood is pretty vibrant, and I feel like the art district is thriving. And so it really is, they used to say this back in the day, but today it really is a great place to raise a family.
With the neighborhood thriving and, you mentioned the businesses and the arts, the cultural, what do you think about all the, here they used to have jam sessions here at Alberta Park, but now you see more of, you have last Thursday or first Thursdays? You got last Thursdays, and then you have also the Alberta Street Fair. Talk about how that kind of brings, the neighborhood, all the communities together, but it also talks about the rich culture on Alberta Street, which a lot of, is kind of like really one of the primary tourist spots where people come in when they come and visit the town.
Yeah, no doubt. Back when we grew up, you couldn't even walk up and down Alberta or Mississippi because of how rough it was. You just didn't feel safe as you do today. And I think the first Thursday, the situation down there on Mississippi, whatever they call it, I think those are kind of very similar to what we used to go to, except it was a neighborhood. Now it's community. The jam sessions we used to come to it was the neighborhood. Now you touched on a lot of people that live on the outskirts like to come in and look at what's going on Alberta Street because it's so vibrant. All the new little pubs and shops and the art district, and that draws a lot of attention from not only the folks that live in the neighborhood now, but from the folks on the outskirts. And I like First Thursdays. I've been there a few times. I mean, I don't like to be in big crowds, but I've been there only a few times, and I think it's really good for the neighborhood and the community.